All right, on number 18, the first triangle we have, I see 30 degrees here and 90 degrees here, which means this angle up here would have to be how big? Has to be a 60. So this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. All right, in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse is equal to the short leg times 2, and the long leg is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. What's the hypotenuse on this 30, 60, 90 triangle? X. What's the short leg? Radical 6. So that means y down here is my long leg. So let's find that hypotenuse first. Hypotenuse is equal to my short leg, which is radical 6, times 2. Now, most of the time when we have a radical multiplied to a whole number, we don't put the multiplication sign in between them, but we also always put the whole number in front of the radical. So my hypotenuse would be 2 radical 6. And we are going to leave that in radical form. I'm not going to put that in my calculator. Would I recommend having your 30, 60, 90 rules written on your cheat sheet? Absolutely. I would have those rules written on my cheat sheet. All right, now we need our long leg. Sorry, I was going to change this hypotenuse to x. My long leg is y. This is equal to my short leg, which is square root of 6, times square root of 3. These two numbers, we multiply together under the radical. So we put them underneath one radical together, so square root of 6 times 3. What is 6 times 3? 18. And now we have to see if we can simplify that radical at all. So I need to try to break down 18. I know 6 and 3 goes into it, but I don't know the square root of 6. And I don't know the square root of 3. Those are decimals. What else goes into 18 other than 6 and 3? 9 and 2. So I'm going to break that down underneath my radical. 18 is the same as 9 times 2. Just like I can take two numbers that are underneath different square roots and times them together underneath one square root, I can take two numbers that are times together underneath one square root and split it up into 2. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here, because that will allow me to simplify this further. So I'm going to have the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. And I'm doing that because I know what the square root of 9 is. What is the square root of 9? 3. So this would be 3 times the square root of 2. Can we simplify the square root of 2 at all? Is there anything that goes into 2? No, just 2 and 1. Is the square root of 2 a number that you know? No, that's a decimal. So my answer for y is 3 radical 2. Thank you. Remember, we don't usually write the times symbol down in between the whole number and the radical. All right. Part B, I see a 90-degree angle and a 45-degree angle. How big is this other angle over here? 45. So we have two congruent angles, which means what about my two legs? They are congruent. So V is the same size as U. What's the hypotenuse here? 10 radical 2 is my hypotenuse. V would be a leg, and u would be a leg. We don't call it short leg, long leg because they're both the same size. So there's not one that's longer than the other on a 45, 45, 90. My rule on a 45, 45, 90 triangle is that the hypotenuse is equal to the leg times the square root of 2. And we need to find the leg here. Well, we know the hypotenuse, that's 10 square root of 2, so I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in. So 10 square root of 2 is equal to, do you guys want to find u or v first? U. It doesn't matter, they're the exact same size. So once I find one, I've found the other one. Times the square root of 2. I want to get u all by itself. So how do I get rid of this? Divide. Both sides get divided by radical 2. So that makes it cancel out on the right. Is there a piece that it can cancel out with on the left? Yes, radical 2 cancels with radical 2. And so I'm left with just a 10 on the left-hand side and just u on the right-hand side. So u is 10. And that means v is how big? Also 10.